Hello my motor enthusiasts. Today at the Austrian Grand Prix, Red Bull took center stage with Max Verstappen clinching pole in the sprint qualifying despite a sensor hiccup earlier. McLaren weren't far behind, showing promising speed with Lando Norris grabbing second place. However, it was a mixed bag for Mercedes and Ferrari. Lewis Hamilton called his run pretty disastrous, while Charles Leclerc faced technical woes that kept him from setting a time in square 3. The underdogs had varying fortunes, with Alpine securing respectable grid slots, whereas Aston Martin and Williams faced uphill battles. And let's not overlook the tyres. Pirelli hinted that the softs could edge out the mediums, possibly setting the scene for a strategic split among the teams. Strap in as we delve deeper into these developments and what they could mean for the race weekend. Hey everyone! You already know me, this is Enzo Watts.
And this is William.
You're with us here at F1 Motor Fever Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for daily updates. Full throttle. Moving on to the drama at the Austrian Grand Prix sprint qualifying, Red Bull certainly gave us something to talk about. Max Verstappen managed to shrug off a sensor issue during practice, coming back strong to secure pole position with a lap time of 1 minute 4.686 seconds. Despite some early scares, it was quite the turnaround.
Absolutely. And what about Sergio Perez? He ended up 7th on the grid, right? That must be quite frustrating considering the potential they showed.
Indeed, Perez clocked in at 1 minute 6.008 seconds. He felt that a better result was possible but got caught out during sprint qualifying. Esteban Ocon, who was ahead, left a considerable gap which ultimately affected Perez's timing and approach. It just shows how every second, or even part of a second, counts in qualifying.
That's fascinating. How did the team react to these mixed results?
Christian Horner, the team principal, acknowledged Max's stellar performance but didn't hide his disappointment regarding Perez's run. Getting boxed in by Ocon meant Perez couldn't deliver a lap representative of his true pace. It's moments like these that can really shift the dynamics for a race weekend.
Looking ahead then, what should we expect for the sprint race?
Well, both Verstappen and Perez are optimistic about making improvements overnight. Verstappen aims to capitalize on his pole position, while Perez is hopeful for a better day, aiming to claw back some ground. It's set to be an exciting sprint race, with strategies and car performance adjustments playing into the hands of perhaps a few surprises on the grid. Switching our focus to McLaren, they've shown impressive pace as well. Lando Norris nearly clinched pole but ended up in second place with a time of 1 minute 4.779 seconds. Despite a minor hiccup through the gravel in practice, he pulled through remarkably in sprint qualifying.
And what about his teammate Oscar Piastri?
Piastri secured third on the grid, timing 1 minute 4.987 seconds. Both he and Norris are in prime positions to challenge for the top spot in the sprint. Their team principal, Andrea Stella, mentioned the difficulties they faced with traffic and positioning during outlaps, but still, they managed a strong finish putting them in P2 and P3 for the start.
Seems like the competition is heating up at the top. How are the team strategies likely to play out, given these qualifications?
Absolutely, the field is indeed tight. With temperatures expected to be very high, the race will be as much about managing tyre degradation and cooling as it is about outright speed. McLaren's strong qualifying positions provide them with an excellent starting point to potentially challenge Red Bull. Stella emphasized the need to maximize their race package and execution, hinting that we might see some aggressive strategies unfold during the sprint.
With such close qualifying times, any predictions for tomorrow's race?
It's going to be a tactical affair, no doubt. The heat will test all the teams, and with McLaren's current form, they could very well disrupt Red Bull's plans. The key will be to see who can best manage the challenging conditions and make the most effective use of their strategy. It's all to play for, and the sprint format only adds to the excitement. Shifting our attention to Mercedes, expectations were high at the Red Bull ring. George Russell managed to secure fourth place with a time of 1 minute 5.05 seconds, expressing some optimism about his chances for the podium in the sprint. However, Lewis Hamilton found himself in 6th place, describing his session as pretty disastrous, with a time of 1 minute 5.270 seconds.
That sounds quite a contrast within the same team. Could you elaborate on what went wrong for Hamilton?
Certainly. Hamilton mentioned that although the practice sessions went well and the car felt good, sprint qualifying didn't reflect their true pace. He wasn't pleased with his laps, calling the session messy. This has put him in a challenging position for the sprint race, where overtaking is notoriously difficult.
And what about examples of how these qualifying performances might affect their strategies for the upcoming sprint race and the main Grand Prix?
Well, taking Hamilton's scenario, starting from P6 in a track where overtaking is tough could mean Mercedes might opt for a more aggressive strategy or different tyre management to gain positions early. For instance, we could see an early pit stop or a longer first stint depending on their tyre performance today. As for Russell, being in P4, he's in a strong position to potentially fight for the podium. They'll likely focus on maintaining a clean race and strategically position themselves to take advantage should the leaders falter.
That makes sense. How are the track conditions expected to play into this?
The track's evolution throughout the race can be quite significant. For example, as the track rubbers in, grip levels can improve, which might help those starting further back like Hamilton to push harder in the latter stages. Additionally, the high temperatures could make tyre management crucial, potentially mixing up the usual strategies.
It sounds like tyre strategy will be crucial indeed. Are both drivers on similar strategies, or does each have a tailored approach?
Andrew Shovlin, their trackside engineering director, mentioned that while sprint qualifying was straightforward, the performance on the soft compound wasn't strong enough to challenge better. This might indicate that each driver could have slightly different setups or strategies to maximize their individual strengths and compensate for the less than ideal qualifying results. Over at Ferrari, the mood is mixed after sprint qualifying. Charles Leclerc faced quite a setback, his car halting in the pit lane due to the engine's anti-stall kicking in, which left him unable to set a time and placing him 10th for the start of the sprint. It was a dramatic moment that cost him dearly.
How significant is that for Ferrari's strategy going forward?
It's a major blow. Starting in 10th in a sprint race limits strategic options and places greater importance on gaining positions quickly to salvage points. Ferrari will need to look at every possible angle to improve his situation during the race.
And what about his teammate?
Carlos Sainz, on the other hand, will start from 5th. He mentioned that while the first 2 segments of sprint qualifying went reasonably well, the switch to soft tyres highlighted some weaknesses. Despite this, he remains optimistic about making adjustments and improving their qualifying for the Grand Prix.
With these developments, what might Ferrari be focusing on tonight?
They will likely be looking at how they can enhance high-speed grip for George and resolving the anti-stall issue for Leclerc. The team has mentioned making a few tweaks overnight in hopes of bettering their positions for the main race on Sunday. It's about scoring decent points in the sprint but also using it as preparation for the Grand Prix.
Seems like a lot of teams are facing their own challenges this weekend.
Indeed, it's a testament to just how competitive and finely balanced Formula One is right now. Each team, whether it's Mercedes finding the right tyre strategy or Ferrari fixing technical glitches, is pushing to the limits of their capabilities. With the conditions likely to stay challenging, tomorrow's sprint will be crucial for setting the tone for the rest of the weekend. Moving on to Ferrari's team principal, Fred Vasseur expressed disappointment with the placement of their cars, particularly with the performance on the soft tyres. He noted issues with car bouncing in the final corners, which they'll need to address. Despite these setbacks, Vasseur's strategy for the sprint is clear: push hard from start to finish, aiming to score solid points with Carlos Sainz and improve Charles Leclerc's position.
It seems like a straightforward approach given the sprint format. How about Alpine? They've been showing signs of improvement recently, haven't they?
Absolutely. Alpine's weekend started off strong with Esteban Ocon finishing free practice 1 in 6th and securing the 8th spot for the sprint. Pierre Gasly will start just behind him in 9th. Alpine's commitment to progression is evident, not least demonstrated by confirming Gasly's stay beyond 2024.
What does Alpine's approach look like for the sprint?
Esteban Ocon was quite pleased with making it into the top 10 again, citing their consistent performance in qualifying as a positive sign. Though he admits Square 3 was challenging, they feel fortunate about gaining a position due to Leclerc's mishap. It's clear their focus is also on maximizing their strategy for the sprint, with no pit stops mandated. Their only option is to push as hard as they can.
And does Gasly share this optimism?
Indeed, he pointed out that while Square 3 didn't go as planned, the overall pace was good and reaching Square 3 with both cars was a win for the team. He acknowledges some areas for improvement but remains confident about their capabilities in the sprint.
With no pit stops in the sprint, how critical is the start going to be for these teams?
It's crucial. The initial laps will be vital for gaining or defending position since overtaking can be challenging later on. Both Ferrari and Alpine will need to leverage their starts optimally. For Ferrari, especially Leclerc, a strong start is essential to make up for the lost ground, while Alpine will be keen to hold their positions and capitalize on any opportunities that arise from the race dynamics.
It sounds like tomorrow's sprint could be quite pivotal for the standings going into the main race.
Exactly. The sprint acts as both a standalone competition for points and a setup for the Grand Prix. Every driver will be on high alert to maximize their outcome, making it an exciting session to watch. Aston Martin seemed to have started the day with promise in free practice, positioning both cars in the top 10. However, the tide turned during sprint qualifying. Fernando Alonso expressed satisfaction with his driving, but ultimately, it wasn't enough to escape Square 2, ending in 13th.
That's certainly disappointing for Alonso. What about his teammate, Lance Stroll?
Stroll was on the verge of breaking into Square 3, but a costly mistake at turn 10 during his final lap relegated him to 12th. He acknowledged the pace was there but admitted they still have some catching up to do.
It sounds like both drivers are somewhat optimistic about their performance, despite the setbacks.
Indeed. Both drivers seem to think they extracted the best they could under the circumstances. Now, they're focusing on gathering as much data as possible from the sprint race to improve in future sessions.
And what's the situation with RB?
RB had a rough time as well, especially after their heavy upgrade package didn't perform as expected last weekend in Barcelona. Daniel Ricciardo finished sprint qualifying in 16th, and Yuki Tsunoda, despite making it to square 2, will start the sprint in 14th.
That's quite a struggle for RB, especially considering their expectations.
Absolutely, and Ricciardo noted the difficulty of the short lap here, which makes any mistake more costly. Tsunoda also faced technical issues with the steering column during free practice 1, which didn't help their cause.
It seems like the sprint race will be crucial for these teams to either rebound or capitalize on their positions.
Quite right. With only the top 8 scoring in the sprint, teams like Aston Martin and RB need to make significant moves if they hope to snatch any points. It'll be a day of high stakes and intense racing, that's for sure. Shifting our focus to RB, Yuki Tsunoda and his team had a notably rough session. Tsunoda, finishing 14th, highlighted his struggle with a spin in the last sector during square 1, which adversely impacted his performance in square 2.
That sounds like a tough break for him. Did the team have any insights on their overall performance?
Yes, Alain Permanet, the racing director, acknowledged the challenges they faced. He mentioned experiments with the car setups after their difficulties in Barcelona. Although Daniel Ricciardo experienced significant changes in his sprint qualifying setup, which didn't quite pay off, the team remains hopeful. They plan to use the sprint to further understand their car dynamics, suggesting a possible rebound in the next sessions.
It's a constant learning curve with these teams. How did Haas fare in comparison?
Haas seemed to lag behind a bit, especially after being overtaken by Alpine in the constructors' standings. Nico Hülkenberg was unexpectedly knocked out in square 1, finishing 17th, while Kevin Magnussen fared slightly better, missing out on the top 10 by a narrow margin, ending up 11th in square 2.
It seems like a mixed bag of results for these teams. What's the outlook for the rest of the weekend?
Well, as we've seen, the sprint serves as a critical juncture for teams to make adjustments and solidify their strategies for the qualifying later in the evening. It's all about adapting quickly to the evolving conditions and any new data they've gathered from today's runs.
Indeed, adaptability seems to be the key word here, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and with such tight competition, even small adjustments can make a significant difference in performance. It'll be fascinating to see how each team tweaks their strategies in the upcoming sessions. Over at Haas, Kevin Magnussen narrowly missed out on square 3 by less than 0.05 of a second. He described his qualifying as smooth and clean, emphasizing the importance of track evolution and a clear path, which he managed to secure this time around.
It seems like Magnussen is finding a bit more of a groove with the car, especially in qualifying.
Absolutely, Ayao Komatsu, the team principal, praised Kevin's effort and the solid lap he managed to put together. However, Nico Hülkenberg's struggles continued, lacking confidence particularly in the low-speed corners, which affects his ability to push the car to its limits.
So, it's a mixed situation for Haas then. On one side, progress, and on the other, ongoing challenges.
Precisely, and Komatsu mentioned that the team would continue to work overnight to address these issues, not just for Nico but also making some adjustments for Kevin's car as well. The dynamics of a sprint weekend allow for these kinds of rapid adaptations, which they're hoping to leverage.
Switching focus to Williams, how did their drivers fare?
Interesting developments there. While Alex Albon has generally been the stronger qualifier over his teammate, it was the American, Logan Sargent, who outperformed in the sprint qualifying session. It's a flip of the usual narrative and could stir some interesting team dynamics.
It sounds like this weekend is throwing up quite a few surprises and challenges across the board.
Indeed, with the tight margins and the constant need for adaptation, it makes for an unpredictable and thrilling race weekend. Each session provides valuable lessons that these teams will take into the upcoming races. Over at Williams, Alex Albon found himself unexpectedly knocked back into the elimination zone, finishing in 19th place. He voiced his struggles with the balance of the car, particularly through turns 3 and 4, which really hampered his performance in the sprint qualifying.
Just to clarify for perhaps some of our newer listeners, when you mentioned balance, what exactly does that entail in a racing context?
A basic query, but I suppose it's fair. In Formula 1, balanced refers to how well the car distributes weight between the front and rear under various conditions like braking, accelerating, and turning. A well-balanced car handles predictably, while an imbalanced one can be quite tricky to drive, much like trying to walk a tightrope while carrying a heavy backpack on one shoulder.
Right, it might sound straightforward to some of our seasoned listeners, but remember, not everyone tuning in is a Formula 1 wizard.
Fair point, though I'd wager most of our audience wouldn't tune into a Formula 1 podcast to hear the basics. They might switch the channel looking for something a bit more, let's say, advanced.
I'd argue it's always good to cover the bases. It might be simple for some, but for others, it's essential learning.
Switching back to Williams, Logan Sargent had a better outing, making it to square two. Despite not setting a timed lap and finishing 15th, he seemed quite positive about the improvements from free practice 1 to sprint qualifying.
It's a dynamic field, isn't it? Always adapting, always tweaking.
Absolutely, and that's where the thrill of Formula One lies. It's not just about speed, it's about precision, strategy, and making those split-second decisions that can make or break a race. Over at Kick Sauber, it was yet another disappointing day in Austria. Valtteri Bottas had a lap deleted due to exceeding track limits and will start from the 18th position. He mentioned that although the car felt decent, they are noticeably lacking in single-lap pace.
It seems like a recurring theme for them. Any ray of hope for Bottas or Zhou in the upcoming sessions?
For Zhou Guanyu, it's a similar story of challenges. He faced heavy traffic and a run into the gravel during his laps, finishing at the bottom in 20th position. Both drivers are evidently struggling but remain optimistic about harnessing a better pace for the main qualifying session.
What's the main takeaway from the team's perspective?
Alessandro Alunni Bravi, the team representative, reflected on the session with considerable disappointment. He pointed out that mistakes in the last sector and not managing clean laps really hurt their chances. On a circuit as quick as Spielberg, every thousandth of a second counts, and today, Kick Sauber just couldn't find their rhythm.
With such tight lap times, I guess even the smallest error is amplified.
Exactly, and that's what makes Formula One so demanding and enthralling. Every little detail needs to be perfect, and when it's not, it's back to the drawing board to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. Moving on to tyre strategies, Simone Berra from Pirelli highlighted that there were no surprises with the tyre compounds this weekend. The teams tested the medium and soft tyres during the sprint qualifying, and it seems the difference in performance was roughly 0.4 of a second, aligning with Pirelli's predictions.
That's quite insightful. Does this mean we should expect a straightforward strategy for the race?
Not exactly straightforward. Although a two-stop strategy using medium-hard-medium seems to be favored by half of the teams, there's still room for variations. The other half might opt for two sets of hard or medium tyres depending on how things unfold tomorrow. Track temperatures are expected to be around 40 degrees Celsius, which will undoubtedly play a significant role in tyre performance.
It's fascinating how much the temperature can affect the race strategy.
Indeed, and that's what makes Formula One such a complex sport. Every element, from the asphalt temperature to the air density, can influence the outcome. Simone Berra also noted that today's lap times were a few tenths slower than last year's. This could be due to a variety of factors including the track conditions and the tweaks made to the cars year on year.
With all this data from Pirelli, teams will have a lot to consider for the upcoming main race. It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where the car, the driver, and the tyres are in perfect harmony. That's when you see magic happen on the track. Speaking of online buzz, what's the chatter about on the forums today?
Well, there's quite a stir about Jos Verstappen and his recent comments about Christian Horner. He said, quote, "I'm completely done with Horner," unquote. This has sparked quite a debate among the fans.
Oh, that sounds juicy. What are people saying?
Let's see, Alucard Helsins kicked off the debate questioning, quote, "What does he mean, done? When was he ever with Horner on anything," unquote. And then, Jay from Manchester replied, saying that Jos was quite pleased when Horner and Red Bull decided to promote Max Verstappen back in Spain, replacing Daniel Kvyat.
The plot thickens, then?
Absolutely. And then, user John C. adds, quote, "It all went south when Horner told him to stop trying to be the main character. Man's ego couldn't take it," unquote.
Remarkable, the dynamics within these teams, isn't it?
Indeed, it is. And there's more. Bradley Cooper, not the actor obviously, mentioned that Jos probably thinks he gave Horner and Red Bull max, and without him, the team would be nowhere. He sarcastically noted that Jos is likely telling his son he's nothing without him.
That's quite a statement. Seems like emotions are running high.
They certainly are. And adding a bit of humor to the mix, Ilicanes chimed in with, quote, "Joe for driver of the day," unquote, followed by the Kingpin saying simply, quote, in, unquote, which is a bit of an inside joke among the fans.
You've got to love the internet for these bits, haven't you? Keeps things interesting amid all the serious talks.
That's true. And just to wrap this up, Burns before reading thinks that Joe's being done with Horner was probably Horner's goal for a long time. Adds a bit of a strategic angle to the whole drama, doesn't it?
It does indeed. It's like a chess game with high-speed cars and pit stops. Thanks for that roundup, quite the insight into the world of Formula One beyond the track. Thanks for tuning into F1 Motor Fever podcast today. We explored everything from tyre strategies to the intricate team dynamics within Formula One. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Remember to subscribe and activate notifications so you never miss out on our discussions. Your support by sharing our channel across social media and with friends really helps us grow and continue bringing you top-notch insights.
And hey, don't be a stranger, drop us a comment or two. It might just make our next episode. Keep your eyes peeled, we've got some thrilling topics lined up that you won't want to miss. We're here daily, so there's always something fresh.
We genuinely appreciate all your listens, likes, and shares. Looking forward to having you back for more intriguing discussions and perhaps a few surprises along the way.
Until next time, remember to keep things light and fast, just like a good race strategy.
Pedal to the metal, keep your gaze on the road, our channel's content is pure gold.